Hi, Emmanuel. Welcome to Tech Advantage. Thank you so much for accepting to do the podcast with us today.
Hi, Parmita. My pleasure.
Well, because we have had so many conversations before, and I know that you have done several podcasts in Luxembourg and abroad, but you were not. We didn't get the time to talk on Lists podcast, which is
Indeed, indeed.
sacrilege because you are like one of seriously, because you're like one of the stars of List. I mean,
Oh, come on.
we'll, yes, come on. I mean, seriously. So, but before we get into that project, um, that specific one of the specific projects that you have worked on, which is quite a famous one now. Let's start a little bit at the beginning of your journey. I mean, we have spoken about it once, I think,
True. Yep.
but let's just do it for our listeners again. Yeah. So, how did it all begin? What led you to come into this the research, basically?
So research or list specifically?
Both.
Okay. So I mean, I'm French, so meaning that I follow the kind of very standard curriculum that we have in France. So meaning what we call classe préparatoire. So this just after the baccalaureate. So if you are good at math, so you are going in these I don't know how to say it in English, but preparatory schools that are.
Grande école? No.
So this is to prepare you to integrate, as we say,
Okay.
grandes écoles,
Mm.
meaning that you don't go to university. But again, so it's very standard, but it's very intensive,
Yeah.
and so you're prepared to then, after 2 years, try to get into these grandes écoles that are essentially engineer schools. So
So
for
you are good in maths.
scientists. Well, I was. I don't know if I'm still as sharp as I used to be, but I mean, I've never been super sharp on maths. But it's true that I have let's say, a feeling about science, and that this one was, I mean, was already vibrating very early in my life. So this one
Mm.
I can't deny, and I essentially just cultivate it over the years. So then these preparatory schools. Then I had a would say modest engineer school. So I was in Besançon. It was really good. I really liked it. So and that was also the first time I was working on piezoelectric materials, so which is something I'm still working on. So I somehow fell in love a bit with those materials. Sounds a bit geek, but it's a bit true. Because it's also
Yeah.
strongly related to music, and which is something I like very much. So
Mm-hmm.
then I was somehow making my mind to carry on working on this one. Then I had the opportunity to make a PhD, yeah, to work on PhD studies in Lyon,
Mm-hmm.
and which is a city I really wanted to spend some time there. And then, so yep, it was a long time ago, at the end of the last century, because I defended in '99, and then I work on a very small, very thin piezoelectric layers, so to make um, sensors, for instance, or actuators. And then I carried on in Grenoble,
Mm-hmm.
where I was first. I had a postdoc at CEA, and where I got a permanent position, and then I spent essentially 10 years in Grenoble. And at some point, so I really wanted to try to reach another league, to put it this way.
Mm-hmm.
And I found a way to spend 2 years in Cambridge, in the UK, to also get acquainted with top researchers who would be more, let's say, more uh, diving into top journals
Yeah.
at the really forefront of research. And this one, I have to say, so it was really a revelation to me. So it was very intense, but also, I mean, on both sides, because I went there with my family, was also an opportunity to learn English a bit better than before, where I was in a very French environment. So that's, I mean, now French are doing better at languages, but at the time, so, and still it's not perfect. But anyway, so it was a very good personal and professional opportunity to go
Opportunity. Yeah.
there. And then so it was 2 years. I was still under contract with CA, and when I went back to Grenoble, it was in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
It was difficult to get back to where I was before, even if I was very happy with my job. But still, when you somehow had the taste of something
Bigger.
bigger,
Yeah.
with more ambition. So I really needed something, and then I was given the opportunity to come to Luxembourg by our former head of department, Jens Kreisel, who's now the director of university in Luxembourg, who asked me to join. So it took me some time to get convinced, to convince my wife. But at some point, so both of us were convinced, and then we then decided to make a move. It was 2014, and then here we are. So I'm still in Luxembourg, very happy to be here. And I think, I mean, if I look at my journey here in Luxembourg, so I think I was certainly right, because I had more somehow freedom to develop the things I had in mind. I could also pursue what I initiated in Cambridge,
Mhm.
and my, yes, recent success in project probably talk for I mean, somehow talk for it. So I'm
Yeah.
still very pleased to be here.
So 2014, so you were right in the middle of the transition that List was going through, yeah?
Yes, 4 months before the merge. So
Yeah,
because it
okay.
happened, yeah, January 2015.
Hmm. How was it? Was it difficult for you
No, to be
to
honest, I mean, I didn't have the time. So I know that there are still people talking about Litman, Tudor, for the ones who were there before, even if now I feel that I'm one of the old ones. Uh, I mean, senior ones, to put it better. But uh, I didn't really feel any strong difficulties to integrate, or also
Mm,
to welcome the people who would come from Tudor. I was at Litman at the time, so yeah. To be honest, so I didn't really feel anything special. It was Everything was new for me,
yeah, yeah, I can
so then
imagine,
it,
yeah.
it was not impacting me very much.
So let's get back to the to your work. You just introduced the materials that you fell in love with. Piezoelectric, yeah? Or how do you call it? Piezoelectric or pyroelectric? How do you call it exactly?
Well,
Piezoelectric.
this is two different topics, and this is an excellent point actually, because I started with piezo. So piezo is the fact that I mean, I won't explain the word itself because I'm sure I will say something wrong. It comes from Greek, and I think it means pressing. If I
Right.
didn't say something
Okay.
wrong, but it means that if you press those materials, you can induce a displacement of electric charges. So it means that those are materials that can make a link between the mechanical world and the electrical world.
Mm, okay.
So, and in on both ways. So
Hmm.
if you press it, you are going to induce charges or an electric field, and if you apply an electric field, you can displace the material. You can change the size of the material. So then, and that's why it's related to music, as I was mentioning. So there are, for instance, on double bass, the mic that they use is generally a piezo, which is a very small piece of material that is stacked on the double bass at a very specific place, and then the vibration of the double bass when you play the strings
Yeah.
then makes a mechanical vibration, and this vibration goes into the material, and the material transforms this mechanical vibration into electrical signal, and that goes in an amplifier, and then you can amplify the sound. So it's also true for violins, for instance. So it's not true for guitars and many things, but this is, let's say, one of the applications that is used. But there are many applications that are a bit more subtle. To give another one, so this is for instance, on our mobile phone. So this is probably the one that is making the, let's say, the biggest impact on our lives. So this is the filters that we use in our mobile phones are all made of piezoelectric materials, where we are also playing with this resonance that you
Hmm.
can get, and this transition between mechanical and electrical signals. So just to
The,
type
in
two things that
in
are
in
really.
the phone in the phone, it's the electrical signals that are induced, and then is that
So
so?
the signal comes. So this is an electromagnetic signal. So let's say
Yeah.
electrical signal that comes from someone who calls you. So at
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
high
Yeah. Yeah.
frequency, and
Mm.
it enters in your phone through the antenna. And then, so here, this is an electrical signal, and then it reaches a piezoelectric material that transform this electrical signal into mechanical signal. It sounds a bit strange, but it makes the process extremely efficient. So meaning that you can detect very, very tiny signals. And you can also make a very sharp filter with this resonance. So the piezos, there are some piezos that are extremely good at making the equivalent of a tuning fork, and you can then treat the signal. You can restrain the size of the door in which you can enter a signal. So that helps you making the distinction between you and your neighbor who wants to call someone else. You don't want that
Right.
there's a superimposition of the signals, and that's this. Let's say the specific properties of those
Mhm.
materials enable this. So to make the transition to pyro, because it was your your initial question, so I started to work on all these applications when I was at CEA at the time,
Mhm.
and then when I went to this great journey to Cambridge, so then I started to study a new coupling of the same family of materials, so able to couple, let's say, energies. But piezo is between mechanical and electrical. Pyro is between thermal and electrical.
Got it. Okay.
So meaning that you can transform waste heat into electricity, which is one of my favorite topics. But you can also do the other around, same as piezo. So rather than going from heat to electricity, you can use electricity to create heat, or to put it differently, you can use electricity to create cold, meaning that you can think of potentially making fridges, which is another topic on which we are heavily working on, which is actually the topic I first studied when I was in Cambridge. So the idea of pyro came later. I mean, I didn't invent pyro. I mean, it was invented actually 5,000 years ago. But the thing that we did here is that we studied very specific materials that are extremely good at transforming this waste heat into electricity, and which makes our approach a bit original.
Hmm. So, okay, I understand the difference between the two materials. So currently, you are actually working on the pyro electric, not the
Mostly, mostly.
mostly.
Yep.
Um, Getting back to your journey within List. So, if I ask you, I suppose that I think I know the answer. If I ask you to name one project that has been um, a focal point in your journey, what would that be?
Well, I mean, it's indeed, so it's difficult to avoid the ERC that I just got. I mean, that in
Yeah.
24, so which is certainly something very difficult to get, and
Mm.
also that somehow puts you on the map. So you become
Yes.
more knowledgeable, even if you are the same before and after. I mean, probably not because it's extremely intense, and to prepare it, it's really something. And the oral is
Competitive.
also, yes, very competitive.
Yeah.
You have also to really think through, trying to be original, trying to project yourself over the 5 years of the project. Um, but it's also a great journey. So yeah, of course, I'm very proud of this one, and also, I mean, it resonates with the whole narration that I provided before. So that it's really a journey. So it comes from Grenoble, and then some thoughts that I put there when I was in Cambridge, and then the first years here in Luxembourg, where I was mostly working on the opposite effect, which is what we call electrocaloric. And then we found fantastic materials on this topic, and then I realized that I could use the system in a different way, and that came to these pyroelectric materials that we tried, and we found fantastic results. So the whole process took decades to some extent. So
Yeah.
meaning that I have a very strong feeling of achievement and pride. I mean,
Yeah.
I cannot deny it.
So, can you explain to our listeners in sort of layman's terms what this project is about? Because
Yep.
when you said that the application is in, we can think about fridges, we can probably also think about air conditioning, if I'm not mistaken. So, if you can just explain it to us a little
Yep.
bit.
So this very project, the ERC, so it's called Elec from Heat.
Mhm.
I mean, it doesn't sound very big poetry, but it's very clear. So it means that we are going to make electricity from heat, and more
Yeah.
specifically from waste heat. So meaning this is the opposite effect as the one you just described. So here we are not trying to make a cooler or a fridge. We are trying
Right.
to go the other way around. So meaning we have heat that
Mhm.
we may dispose, we can, I mean, we can use it or not, because most of the time this is a big deal, also in our, let's say, endeavor to try to cope with the difficulties to get access to energy. One big source of energy is waste heat that can
Yes.
be in our everyday lives, but also in mostly on big industrial
Yeah.
compounds, or yeah, big industries that are using a lot of heat, and there's a lot of waste heat. So the originality of my approach is to consider then specific materials that are mostly ceramics, and to try to use what we call a thermodynamic cycle. So meaning that those materials can be extremely efficient at transforming this waste heat into electricity thanks to this pyroelectric effect. But they are especially efficient. So meaning they can really transform a large amount of this waste heat into electricity. So there's very little amount of waste heat which is left. So that's the first advantage. And the second one is that if you use a specific cycle, if you let's say pre-charge them, or I mean put them in certain conditions, then you can improve very much the amount of electricity that you can produce, which is probably the most original part of my approach, that convinced the panel to give me the funding for this project.
And so what is the end application? What is the end product? The end product is the electricity that is generated, right?
Yes. So for this one, so it's still early, too early to answer this one, and we have to keep all those open. But the things that we can envision right now is
Mm.
typically um, the waste heat that you have in data centers, for instance.
Yes,
So
okay.
this is, we have more and more data centers, that the
Yeah, it's
AI
a
is
problem.
becoming
Yeah,
extremely,
yeah,
extremely, I mean, spread over the world.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And to do it, so you need a lot of computers working at temperature which is pretty high. So and you have to get rid of this heat.
Yes.
And at the moment, we are getting rid of it. If we you put it in Norway or in Iceland, so because it's cold, but it doesn't mean that you don't get rid of it. You are getting rid of it, just that you have access to low temperature, but you
Mm.
are reducing a lot of what we say entropy, and you waste this heat. So this is my main hope, is that we can then prepare a module which is pretty compact, very efficient, and where we could take advantage of this waste heat, and then recycling this waste heat and transforming it into electricity. That's one of the applications.
And the electricity then what goes into the grid?
It goes into the grid or goes back into the I mean into the power
It is.
supply of the data center itself. So I
Mm.
mean, once you have electrons that are moving, you can imagine many things.
Yeah, okay. So it's basically becomes a loop then in itself. Excellent. Um, Coming back again to your journey within List, this ERC thing, this entire project, how important was collaboration for you? What contribution did collaborating within inside your team or within units, what kind of a role did that play?
Um, s- I mean, it's fundamental, and I think
Yeah.
this is one of the main advantages of List, is that we can build a team.
Mm.
So, and I was lucky enough to, when I started my journey, to somehow have the support of Jens Kreisel, who at the time had a Pearl project, so that gave us the opportunity to build a team. So, here I really have to thank him on this, because it was really for me the opportunity to save many years, and then I could then hire brilliant people
Mm.
um, to work with me on the topic. So, and not only non-permanent people, but also permanent people, and that gave us the opportunity somehow to build not only a team, but also knowledge on the topic that over the years are making a difference. So, and I would say it's mostly in this team that we built, that used to be the ferroic materials for transducers group, that we then build this expertise, and we could then develop at, I think, a world level, the research that we are pursuing.
Just a question of curiosity. Um, Currently, that you're doing this is with partner institutes and universities, right? The projects that you're doing currently, the
So this
ERC thing,
DRC is something which is very personal. So sounds
right?
a bit selfish to to say it like that, but it's true. So it meaning that it's really on your name. You take it on your shoulders, and you are the one who are
Carry
carrying
it,
the load. So it's
right?
personal. It's really so it's only list. So, but it's true that in for this very topic, I've been uh, working with a company
Mm,
that is in Japan, Murata,
yeah. Okay. Mm.
that I met actually when I was in Cambridge at the time, and when I suggested to try to somehow um, investigate the application side, or let's say the engineering side, because I'm an engineer at the beginning. So then I did a PhD, but I started to be an engineer, as I said in the beginning. I really wanted to somehow build machines out of these devices, which was not the case of my colleagues in Cambridge. So it was also a way to somehow distinguish and to propose something different our colleagues in Murata. And we've been working all the years long. And it, to me, it is fundamental, still fundamental, because I have access to unique materials that nobody
Mm.
else develops in the world. So this is, let's say, the main collaboration I have for this very specific topic.
Right. Uh, would you have any sort of tips or anything? Imagine somebody's listening to us who wants is an aspiring scientist and wants to apply for the ERC grant or anything like that, personal ambition. What would your advice be to them?
I mean, first, I think, yeah, the personal ambition is certainly something that has to resonate to some extent. Meaning, I mean, personal ambition doesn't mean that you have to be greedy, but that
Yeah.
you have to be convinced that you can carry a project at a level that potentially, if it works, could really significantly change, perhaps not the world, but have
Yeah.
could have really a strong impact.
Big
Again,
impact.
doesn't sound modest to say so, but I mean, at some point you have to dare, and you have to say, okay, I have this. What can I do with it? So, is there really some impact that I could have? So, I think this part is very important. That it has to, you have to be convinced, even if, I mean, the probability that you are going to have a fantastic success is really difficult. Fantastic impact on the lives of humankind is going to be extremely low. But you have to be convinced that there's something big that you could make out of it. So I think this
Mm.
is for ERC. This is certainly important, and this is also a very important to convince the others that
The
this
jury,
is the
probably.
project that makes sense. And the second advice I would have is that you have to be visible on this research, meaning that it's difficult to convince someone if you don't have grounds. So you need to exist, or to know the topic, and to also, because this is very important, to get a certain power of conviction. So because, I mean, for all our, and this is also somehow the curse of our work as researchers, that we have to convince others, and perhaps this is very good as it is, we have to convince the others that what we are doing makes sense and that we can do something. So and to do it, so you really have to build an expertise over the years. So I think it cannot come this way. So it's not you don't wake up one morning saying, I will do this, something you've never done before. But it's true that you can have some eureka moment where you say,
Idea. Yeah.
why didn't think of it?
Mm.
Why don't, which is a bit the way I mean, somehow the topic I'm working on now is a bit like that. Not exactly, but saying at some point, so you accumulate things, and you are somehow in the mist, and you see at the moment a light, saying, why don't I see it a different way? So if you see that that you can create excitement on yourself already, saying, wow, this is great. So I didn't see many things on this. Then perhaps you have a case, and you can then try.
And what's next? You think there are other materials, hidden materials that can be.
Well, I mean, my, I mean, the way I see it, so I mean, I think it's difficult to pursue many topics
Yeah.
with the same level of intensity as the one I have at the moment. So, and I really believe that there's something to be done. So I want really to put all my not all I mean my energy, because I'm also head of unit, so I cannot spend all my time on this one. But strictly speaking, I have 35% of my time on that I have to dedicate on this one, and I really do it. And I think that there's really something real. So I hope that by the time the product is done, so that there are some applications that are at least
Yeah.
that we can already envision. And again, so well, I mostly talked about the how to transform this waste heat into electricity, but I like also very much the other topic, so which is then the electrocaloric effect. That now we are mostly working on another family of materials that are polymers. And I have another project on this one EIC that I also got last year. So I meaning that this is really the moment somehow of my life on this research where I really have to push. And this one also, but this one is much more collective. So there are other partners in the project, and with let's say a color which is even more leaning towards industry. So I'm also pretty confident that we can do something real eventually on this one. So let's say that on these two topics, so the 4 or 5 years to come, so are going to be critical, and my hope would be to push towards more maturity, and hopefully convince industrial partners to invest on this technology, and try to make something real. So this is really something I want I mean, would be really delighted to see before I retire, but I still have time.
Yes, you do. Well, it's amazing to hear you talk so passionately about this research. We're coming to the end of the podcast, so we are ending this series with three questions.
Okay.
The first of all is i- so you spoke of the project that you that it's close to your heart. But if I ask you, what is a list innovation apart from your projects that you would like to mention? Is there a favorite list innovation that you would like to talk about?
I mean, this is a tricky question, but if I had to pick one, um, I would pick. I mean, on things that are a bit more, let's say, uh, a bit more in the past. There are new things, because I think that the things to come in the next future are going to be great. So that would be my favorite answer. But if you force me to to pick one, I think I would pick another ERC project, which is Nicolas Boche's project
Yeah.
on how to make green hydrogen. So I think he had a very good idea, um, where I mean the idea is to take porphyrins, so that are compounds that you can find in nature, and
Mm.
transform them to use them to create green hydrogen is also a very beautiful idea that I think are very much on the spirit of first what we can do in LIST, and also what is required in ERC, what is asked for in ERC program. So that's the one I would pick.
Right. And if I ask you, so along this journey of so many years, you must have, I mean, you have had colleagues from all over the world, and so is there one person that you would like to mention or give a shout out to?
Um, Same. So this is a difficult question, but if I had to pick one, I think it's my colleague with whom I shared the office for 10 years, Jorge Niguez, who has been a constant source of inspiration. I mean, we discussed a lot, and we are still discussing a lot. We are not sharing the the room anymore, but hey, I mean, this guy is a great scientist, and also very creative. Then, so he helped me a lot in my endeavor. So yeah, so I have
Okay,
to thank Jorge for that.
perfect. And the last question, but not the least, of course, is there any book or a podcast that you would like to recommend to our listeners?
I thought of it a bit, and I mean, over the last year, so I have to say that the book that impacted me the most is these comic books from Jean Covici. I don't know if you heard of it. So I mean, it's in France. It may make a big. I mean, it's a big thing. So it's the guy tried to express the need to change our habit related to energy. So we are spending too much
Right.
energy, and he made. I mean, the guy is a scientist, and he then with the help of someone who knows how to draw,
Illustrate.
illustrate. So I forgot the name of the guy, so I'm sorry about that. But Jean Covici is very very well known, and he's becoming also a figure which is more and more visible in France, even
Mhm.
political. Uh, and I think the way he presented the let's say the decades to come as a major issue related to energy is certainly I think extremely I mean first frightening to some extent, but also
Mhm.
puts the right numbers in front of us and the real challenges that we have in front of us. So if I could recommend a book to be read, so this is really these comic books from Jean Covici, and in French it's called Le Monde Sans Fin, so the world
Yeah,
without
okay.
ending or something like that.
Without end, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it was really a big hit. So I think it was the book that was the most sold in 23, I think, or 24, 23.
Okay. Okay.
Please read it.
I will. I will. Like I was telling one of my guests, I have now a long, long list of because I've been doing this series for quite some time now, and almost everybody has suggested books. So I have a long list of books
Okay,
that I have to. It's like
excellent.
a reading list for summer. So
Very good.
well, thank you so much, Emmanuel. I can't wait to see the amazing things that are about to. And I'm sure you'll do more amazing things. At least,
Well,
yes.
putting all my energy on this.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time today,
Paramita.
and talk to you later. Bye.
Bye bye.